Alright, this is the Hero 4 Silver Edition unboxing. I've got the brand new Hero 4 and I'm going to see what's in the box. Okay. So here's the camera itself. It comes in the waterproof case. You can see it uses the exact same case as the Hero 3 model, but the Hero 4 Silver has a touchscreen on the back, so it'll allow you to slide and use it a little bit more like your iPhone. Inside we've got battery. The batteries on the Hero 4s are more like a DSLR battery. Here's the power button. One little long press there and up it comes. And the initial mode, what they default to is the mode called 1080s, which is 1080 Super. So what that does is that gives you the entire full frame in 4:3 ratio, sort of like what your old television would do, and then it stretches it to 16:9, which is more like what YouTube widescreen format is. To get the true value, though, of the Hero 4, I think what you will want to be shooting in is more the 2.7K setting, and so to get that, what we're going to do is we're going to hit this button on the side, which is now the settings mode, so that'll get us into the settings for video. So we hit that, brings up video. So in order to scroll through these, you just use the power button, which scrolls down, and then you use the shutter button to select. So hit the shutter button, and that's 1080 regular, 960, 720 Super, 720 VGA, 4K. So the main difference between the Hero 4 Silver and the Hero 4 Black is that the Hero 4 Silver does 4K in only 15 frames per second, which is a little slower, not really up for video. So what we'll want is 2.7K 24. One of the nice things about this current model of Hero 4 is that, you know, in the old models you had to figure out what the symbol was. In this one, you can see that it's actually written right at the top. So this is low light. Here at the top you can see it's low light. So we're going to leave that in NA. That's the spot meter. We'll leave that off. And then you get down here to Pro Tune. This is the other thing that is a real upgrade in the Hero 4 models. They've got Pro Tune not only for video but also for photo, and you can turn it on or off for video and photo independently. So for this, in general, if you don't know what Pro Tune is, it's probably best to leave it off. What it does is it gives you a little bit more, a little bit less file compression, so your files are a little bit larger, and it will desaturate the images, shoot them a little bit flatter, so that when you pump them up, you get a little bit more color into them. So for this, we're going to turn it on. Let's try turning it on. It just expands the menu. The things that Pro Tune makes available to you are white balance. So in general, you leave this at auto white balance. You know, depending on whether you're shooting indoors or outdoors, the color temperature will be different. If you're shooting indoors with incandescent lights, it tends to look really yellow. If you're shooting with like fluorescence, it can look green. The auto white balance does a pretty good job of making sure that you know, that things look well balanced. The color, GoPro has its own proprietary color profile called GoPro Color. It looks really poppy, saturated. It's a really nice one to start with. If you want to go with that flat one that I was telling you about, that's a great one too. You just need to be able to pump it up and have some familiarity with GoPro Studio, or if you're using Adobe Premiere, you know, that's using any sort of color editor will allow you to pump it right back up again. One of the things that is a little bit tricky with the with these GoPros is that they default, when they come out of the box, they default to ISO 6400. So let's see, we'll go down to ISO 6400, and that's a pretty high ISO. GoPros do really well at that ISO. They tend to not have that much noise, but still, I think you want to bring that down to 400. Unless you're shooting indoors, really, you're a lot better off to keep that at 400. And let's see, the next setting down is our sharpness. This is basically sort of like what Photoshop does, where it takes the image and it sharpens it in the camera digitally. And generally leaving it high is fine. You don't, you know, if you do that, then you don't want to add any more sharpness. Things can start to look kind of plasticky and a little bit fake. You might start to look like people have glass eyes and that sort of thing. Here's another great feature in the new Hero 4 is it has an exposure compensation. One of the really difficult things about shooting with these GoPros has always been that if you're shooting into the sun, or if your subject is backlit, that a lot of times the light meter, the in-camera light meter, will be fooled and your subject will look too dark. One of the things that you can do here is come down to the exposure compensation, and it's going to first go to try and underexpose. So if you're shooting in in the snow or in bright water, that kind of thing, usually it's a good idea to overexpose by half a stop or so, somewhere between half a stop and 1 stop. So we'll leave that at over half a stop. So now we're shooting at 2.7K, 24. We're in ProTune. This is going to produce a big file. If you're shooting, where you're trying to do kind of reality stuff, where you're trying to capture interesting things that people are saying, this is going to be a great combination for you. The other thing that is really important with the Hero 4 Silver, that really makes it different than the Hero 4 Black, is what's on the back. So yes, it's definitely good. You want to master those menus on the front, but what the Hero 4 Silver makes available to you is you're always able to frame up and see what's actually in the camera. So it's got a sort of safety lock here. If you touch the back, slide this down, hold it in the lock. There we go. Now we can switch between video mode, stills, burst, and which is also our time lapse. So it basically just makes it a lot easier to switch really quickly between the settings. And of course, because the screen is built in, one of the sort of long-standing complaints of GoPro is that you never really knew what you were shooting. It makes it a little bit more difficult to use it as a sort of traditional camera. This is very user-friendly. Allows you to shoot to see exactly what you're shooting. So if we're going to shoot a burst, so I've got shooting 30 frames in 1 second. You can hear it. Makes the shot, gives you the burst. You can see what you just shot. Very user-friendly. One of the best ways to shoot photos is actually not with the photo button, is with the time-lapse button. Because one of the things that you do with a GoPro is you like to mount it on something and then just turn it loose and let it shoot. So generally when I shoot photos, what I'll do with the GoPro is go into photo mode, go to burst mode, hit settings here, and so we'll be in, go into photo mode, go to time-lapse mode, and then rather than burst at the top, we'll go to time-lapse mode and just have it shoot a frame every half second. Like the Hero 4 Black, the Hero 4 Silver shoots 12 megapixel still, so we'll just leave that on, leave your spot meter off so that it does the best job it can. And then here's one of the big new additions with the Hero 4. In addition to being able to shoot ProTune in video, now you can also shoot ProTune in photo. So let's turn that on and get some of the settings out of that. We'll leave our white balance on auto. Let's leave GoPro color. We'll leave it set to GoPro color, which is nice and bright, colorful, poppy. Our ISO, you notice that even though we changed the ISO in the video mode to ISO 400, on the photo mode, it's still at ISO 800. We'll just leave it there for now. Sharpness high. Here's that exposure compensation. One of the things with an auto exposure that is difficult is if you're shooting in the sun, shooting a backlit subject, shooting on the snow, tends to want to underexpose things because it sees the world being really bright. So let's go until we're at half stop over and exit. So our photo mode now, what this does is you mount the GoPro just like you would, mount it on your ski, mount it on your head, and you will be shooting a still image, 12 megapixels, every half second, and then you'll go back through and see if you got anything good. All right, so there you have it. The Hero 4 Silver Edition. I think it's going to be make using a GoPro even easier than it's already been.